The thunder cracked like the voice of an ancient spirit, and the village of Nkosu fell into silence. Kwame felt his chest tighten as the air thickened, carrying a whisper that was not of this world. Elder Jabari said, "The ancestors stir tonight. Their voices tremble with warning." The young man looked around, seeing familiar faces shadowed by fear as the flames of the great fire danced wildly. A sudden wind blew through, scattering embers across the gathering ground. Kwame said, "Why do they call to me? I am but a farmer's son." The sky glowed with streaks of crimson, as if the heavens themselves bore wounds. Jabari's eyes, old yet burning with clarity, fixed on him. He said, "You were chosen long before your birth. What begins tonight cannot be undone." The crowd gasped as the sacred drum cracked in two without a hand touching it. Kwame's breath shuddered as the whisper became a roar inside his mind. He fell to his knees, the earth trembling beneath him, and he understood nothing would ever be the same again. The night gave way to dawn, and Kwame walked silently across the fields, his mind still drowning in whispers of the ancestors. Birds called faintly, yet their music felt hollow, stripped of peace. He thought of Jabari's words and the cracked drum, a symbol of heritage broken by unseen hand. His steps faltered as if the earth itself resisted him. Io appeared beside him, strong and steady, carrying his spear across broad shoulders. Io said, "Your spirit shakes, brother, but your blood is stronger than your fear." Kwame's eyes lowered and he whispered, "How do I carry a burden I never asked for?" The breeze rustled through tall grass, carrying scents of smoke and ash from the night before. The land bore scars, and so did Kwame's heart. Kwame followed Jabari into the sacred grove, where trees rose like pillars of eternity. Sunlight streamed through the canopy in shafts of gold, illuminating ancient carvings on stone altars. Jabari said, "Here the ancestors speak clearest if one dares to listen." Kwame's breath caught as whispers echoed, not from mouths but from leaves and roots. He pressed his palms to the stone, the surface warm as if alive. Jabari's voice lowered, "Your destiny is not written in silence but in echoes of the past." Fear stirred in Kwame's chest, but so did wonder. He said softly, "Then I must learn their voice, no matter the cost." That evening, tension brewed in the village. Whispers of fear circled among families, blaming Kwame for angering the spirits. A man said, "The storm came when he arrived. This curse follows him." Others nodded, torn between awe and resentment. Kwame's shoulders tightened, the weight of judgment pressing like stones. Jabari said firmly, "Blame not the chosen. Blame the shadow that hides in your doubt." Yet Kwame felt the sting of every glare, every whisper branding him as different. He turned away, swallowing his pain, but within his chest, the ancestor's voice throbbed louder, refusing silence. Night returned heavy with silence, but Kwame could not rest. He sat at the edge of the river, its surface reflecting broken starlight. His thoughts circled like vultures, tearing at his peace. He whispered, "I did not seek this, yet it seeks me without mercy." The water rippled though no wind stirred, and within it he saw fleeting shapes of ancestors. Their voices whispered, "Rise, child, for the path is carved in your blood." Tears welled in his eyes as fear fought against duty. He clenched his fists and said, "If destiny comes, I will meet it standing, not fleeing." Dawn spilled pale gold across the shrine as incense curled like sleeping snakes. Kwame stepped inside, heart thudding against a silence that felt watched. Elder Jabari said, "The heirloom waits where memory breathes." The walls were carved with spirals of river and flame, each groove lacquered by the oil of centuries. Kwame reached toward a woven bundle placed on a stone cradle. The air cooled, and whispers pressed on his ears like hands. He said, "If I open this, I cross a gate I cannot close." Jabari's voice softened. Gates open when feet obey purpose. The bundle parted to reveal a mask of dark wood veined with bronze. It seemed to drink the light and give back a low hum. Kwame trembled as the hum matched his pulse and steadied it. Jabari said, "Your blood answers its call, not mine." The mask felt warm, like a sleeping animal waking, and the shrine seemed to breathe with him. Outside the shrine, the wind ran through tall grass like swift water. Io waited with a spear and a gaze that never wandered. He said, "If spirits call you, my bones will echo your answer." Kwame managed a faint smile that did not reach his eyes. He said, "What if the call breaks more than it heals?" Io planted the spear in the earth as if rooting a tree. He said, "Then I will hold the pieces while you shape them anew." The village stirred behind them, weary and bruised by rumor. Jabari stepped out, the mask wrapped again, and nodded once. He said, "Oaths are bridges over fear, and fear is deep water." Io touched the bundle with 2 fingers, then his chest. He said, "By breath and blade I walk beside you." Kwame felt the ground steady under his feet. By noon, a messenger arrived, dusted in road and dread. He spoke of Sefu, the township chief whose words were honeyed and hard. The man said, "Sefu gathers men and red banners at the river ford." Jabari's jaw set and the air thinned. He said, "He calls progress a torch, yet he burns the roots." Kwame felt a shiver crawl his spine as the mask thrummed inside the bundle. He said, "Why would he move now?" The messenger swallowed. "He claims the shrine hoards power that should serve him." Io's hand tightened around his spear, knuckles pale. He said, "Then he will meet stone under that river." Jabari's gaze moved to the horizon, weighing time like grain. He said, "We prepare truth, not war, yet be ready for both." The wind shifted as if scouts already watched. Among the granaries, Amara watched with eyes like storm glass. She was kin and shadow, raised on the same songs as Kwame. Amara said, "Why should power choose him, and not the hands that earned it?" Her voice was quiet, sharp against the murmur of grain. She brushed chaff from her wrist as if shedding a slight. Kwame approached, careful, a smile thin as thread. He said, "If I could pass this I would, but the mask answers blood I do not command." Amara's mouth bent, not quite a smile. She said, "Then learn quickly, before Sefu teaches faster." The granary walls held the scent of earth and millet. Io lingered near, measuring the distance like a shield in waiting. The sky dimmed though clouds were few. Evening gathered violet and blue along the river ford. The water moved with a patient strength that mocked haste. Jabari set 3 candles on a flat stone and breathed a prayer into each flame. He said, "Choice is a drum. It must be struck to be heard." Kwame set the wrapped mask before the candles and closed his eyes. He said, "If I am chosen, let my steps be clean, even in mud." Io stood behind him, a quiet wall against the world. He said, "Your back is covered, your front is yours to claim." The river spoke in small tongues over stone, telling old stories. Amara watched from the reeds, her face unreadable as dusk. Kwame opened his eyes and lifted the bundle with steady hands. He said, "I accept, though fear walks with me." Kwame walked beyond the fields into wilderness that breathed with mystery. The forest loomed, each tree older than memory, its roots twisting like serpents guarding secrets. Birds scattered as if warned by unseen mouths. Jabari said, "This place tests not flesh but spirit." The air grew heavier with each step, and the mask within Kwame's bundle vibrated faintly, humming against his ribs. He whispered, "The path feels alive. It watches me." Io lifted his spear and said, "Then let it know you do not walk alone." The canopy swallowed daylight, shadows fell thick and green, and the earth carried an ancient musk. Kwame's breath quickened, though his pace did not falter. Jabari stopped at a hollow stone carved with spirals and said, "Here your strength will be measured, not by hands, but by truth carried in your chest." The ground shivered, and unseen whispers deepened into a roar. Within the grove, Jabari set down small bowls of oil and ash, tracing symbols into soil. He said, "These marks bind us to the ancestors. They will show what lies hidden." Kwame knelt beside him, pressing his palm into warm earth. His skin tingled as voices echoed like ripples in a drum. He said, "They call, but I cannot understand." Jabari's eyes softened. "Their tongue is rhythm, not word. You must feel it in your chest." Io stood watch, scanning the shadows, his knuckles white on his spear. He muttered, "If spirits strike, they will meet iron first." Kwame closed his eyes and felt a surge, like fire rushing through his veins, both frightening and steadying. He gasped and whispered, "I feel them. I feel their sorrow, their rage, their hope." Jabari placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "Then you are beginning to listen." The air snapped cold, and a shape rose from mist, neither beast nor man, cloaked in shadow. Its eyes glowed white, unblinking, as it hissed with 1,000 voices. Kwame staggered back, clutching the mask tighter. Io stepped forward, spear raised, but Jabari's voice cut sharp. "Steel cannot wound spirit." The shadow lunged, brushing Kwame's chest with chilling touch, his heart stuttering in pain. He cried out, "It knows my fear!" Jabari thundered, "Then face it, or it will own you forever." Trembling, Kwame forced his eyes open, his voice breaking. "I am not only fear. I am their son. I am their breath." The shadow reeled, shuddering as if pierced, then howled with rage that rattled the branches above. Kwame's knees buckled, yet he held the mask against his chest, refusing to yield. The spirit shrieked, dissolving into whirling fragments of smoke that coiled around the grove. Io swung his spear at the mist, scattering, but never striking true. Kwame's chest burned as the mask pulsed, flooding his vision with flashes of warriors long gone, bloodied yet unbroken. He staggered, whispering, "They fight within me." Jabari's voice thundered, "Then let their strength be your shield." Kwame inhaled deeply, grounding his feet, lifting the mask high as if it weighed mountains. A wave of force burst outward, shaking trees and driving the mist away. The spirit screamed, scattering like ash into the sky. Kwame dropped to one knee, trembling, chest heaving with exhaustion. Io rushed to his side, steadying him. He said, "You are no farmer's son. The spirits bow to your breath." Kwame whispered, "I only stood because they held me." Silence returned, heavy yet alive, as if the grove itself exhaled. Kwame slumped, sweat soaking his tunic, his arms shaking. Jabari knelt before him and said, "You touched their sorrow and did not break. You are their vessel." Kwame's eyes glistened, and he whispered, "Their voices were so many, I thought I would drown." Jabari pressed his palm to Kwame's chest and said, "And yet you breathe, stronger than before." Io looked on, fierce pride softening into warmth. He said, "You carried them, brother, and we carry you." Kwame's grip tightened on the mask, and he whispered, "Then let this path be walked with open eyes, for I cannot look away now." The grove seemed brighter, shafts of light clearer, and the whispers faded into calm, leaving only the steady beat of his heart. Night cloaked the council hut where whispers sharpened into knives. "Bang!" Amara stood close to Sefu, her eyes carrying both fire and shadow. "Sefu," said the boy, "clings to symbols, but symbols bend to power." His words dripped with confidence, heavy as molten iron. Amara lowered her gaze, yet her voice trembled with ambition. "If he falters, I will not." Sefu smiled, cold and curved, like a blade. "Blood makes doors open, but envy keeps them wide." Outside, the storm groaned as if echoing their pact. Amara's fingers brushed the granary dust on her tunic and she whispered, "He forgets, I remember." Sefu leaned forward, "Then remember this. Strength is not inherited, it is seized." The fire crackled, casting their shadows long and twisted against mud walls. Amara's heart throbbed like a drum of betrayal. By morning, murmurs tangled through the village, thin threads of distrust weaving nets around Kwame. At the well, a woman said, "The storm followed him, and so will ruin." Men nodded, voices low, suspicion mounting. Kwame carried the mask hidden, yet its weight felt like chains of fire. Io stood near, his presence cutting silence, and said firmly, Fear poisons faster than blades. Kwame's eyes dimmed. He whispered, "What if they are right? What if I am curse not cure?" Jabari approached, his staff steady against the dust, his voice stern. "Truth will burn lies, but lies spread fastest in shadow." The villagers stared, faces half hidden in distrust, and children pulled away from Kwame's passing hand. The well's rope creaked, echoing the strain of hearts. That evening, Kwame knelt before the grove altar, desperate, his voice low but fierce. "If I am chosen, why does doubt rot my roots?" He pressed the mask to his chest, its hum faint, almost cold. Jabari said even rivers doubt their course, yet they carve valleys in stone. Kwame's breath broke. "The people hate me. How can I protect those who curse my name?" Jabari placed his weathered palm on the altar. "Leadership is not gift, it is fire, burning both hands that hold it." Io stood guard nearby, eyes sharp on shifting branches, whispering, "Your worth is not measured by their doubt, but by your steps." Kwame closed his eyes, the whispers of ancestors rising again, quieter now, but insistent, pulsing with fragile hope. In secret, Amara moved through the shadows, her heart pacing like a hunted gazelle. She approached the edge of the grove where Sefu's men lingered with red banners and sharp smiles. One soldier said, "Is the boy weak?" as they whisper. Amara's jaw clenched, then she replied coldly, "Weakness runs in him, strength waits in me." Sefu stepped forward, gold rings catching fading light. "Then prove it, tear the thread before it knots." Amara lowered her gaze, but her voice betrayed her hunger. "If chance opens, I will cut it clean." Sefu smirked. "Chance does not open, it is force." His words wrapped her like chains. The forest hissed, carrying their pact into leaves and soil. Amara turned back toward the village, the path dim but burning in her mind. That night, Jabari sat near the fire, his eyes heavy with foreboding. He said, "Tomorrow shadows will test our marrow." Kwame leaned forward, fists clenched. "I cannot fight both fear within and enemies without." Jabari's voice was steady, "Then hold one with courage, and strike the other with truth." Io's face hardened. "Let them come, their teeth will meet iron." Kwame's gaze moved to the mask, its surface faintly glowing, alive in the firelight. He whispered, "I am afraid, yet I will not yield." The wind moaned across the huts, carrying distant drums of Sefu's march. Jabari raised his staff high, firelight catching his beads. "This trial is not end but forge. Steel breaks or sharpens in flame." Silence followed, each breath thick with weight of dawn's promise. The grove quivered as moonlight bled silver across its roots. Kwame placed the mask upon the altar, his chest trembling with the burden of whispers. Elder Jabari's voice was heavy. "The prophecy breathes through you, not another." Kwame's eyes widened. "What prophecy hides behind my blood?" Jabari's hand traced the symbols carved in stone. "A child born in exile shall rise as vessel of ancestors, carrying both curse and crown." Kwame's heart throbbed with disbelief. "My parents were but simple folk. How could exile shape me?" Jabari's gaze pierced him. "Your mother was sister to kings, hidden away to shield you." A shudder coursed through Kwame's bones, the air dense with voices repeating his name. He whispered, "So I was never free, only waiting to awaken chains." The mask pulsed brighter, humming with ancient fire, and silence wrapped the grove like a clenched fist. Kwame stumbled back as truth tightened around his chest. He gasped, "If blood binds me to a crown, then I inherit their enemies too." Jabari nodded gravely. "Yes, and the heaviest enemy is within your kin." Amara's figure emerged from shadows, her voice sharp, heir to kings, yet still the boy who hides behind whispers. Kwame's throat tightened. "Amara, you knew." She smirked bitterly. "I knew enough to see your path paved while mine was ignored." The mask throbbed as if answering her resentment. Jabari raised his staff, voice cutting. "Envy poisons rivers that should run together." Amara's eyes burned. "Envy is born when water is stolen." Kwame's tears burned as much as her words, his heart breaking between revelation and betrayal. At dawn, Sefu strode across the river ford, with banners bleeding red in the sun. His voice boomed. The mask belongs not to blood but to strength. And strength is mine. Villagers gathered trembling, fear bending their spines. Kwame stood at the bank, mask clutched tight, voice shaking. Strength without truth devours itself. Sefu laughed. Truth is what survives after fire. Io stepped forward, spear lifted. Then you will taste the steel of loyalty. Jabari's voice rose above them. This day tests hearts more than arms. The air split with the sound of drums, and the river seemed to still, as if listening. Kwame's palms burned against the mask, a hum swelling louder with each heartbeat. He whispered, "If ancestors walk with me, then let their steps shake this ground." The mask blazed as Amara stepped forward, voice cracking between rage and grief. "I will not kneel to blood that stole my future." Kwame's voice trembled. "Sister of my spirit, I never chose this path." She raised her hands, summoning shadows that coiled like serpents around her. The crowd gasped, children clutching mothers, fear blossoming into panic. Jabari thundered, "Amara, turn back before the spirit you call devours you whole." She laughed bitterly, "Better devoured than forgotten." Kwame cried, "Do not let them use you as weapon against us." Her face flickered between pain and fury, but her steps carried her closer to Sefu's side. He smiled like a viper fed, whispering, "Yes, let her break him." Kwame's knees bent under weight heavier than stone, betrayal cutting deeper than blades. As cries rose, thunder cracked, though skies were clear. The mask pulsed violently, forcing Kwame to his knees, visions flooding his mind, warriors burning, children crying, ancestors chanting his name. Jabari's hand reached but could not calm the storm. He shouted, "The mask demands sacrifice, not possession." Kwame's tears streamed. "If sacrifice is the path, let it fall on me." The ground split, dust rising in choking waves. Villagers screamed. Soldiers staggered. Sefu's face paled, though his mouth still smirked. Amara's aura flickered, her resolve shaken, eyes trembling with regret. Io grabbed Kwame's shoulder. "Stand, brother. You cannot kneel to destiny. You must rise and claim it." Kwame's chest surged with both terror and defiance, his whisper breaking into roar. "Then I rise for them all." Dawn smoldered like banked coals as the river ford filled with red banners and dust. Kwame stood at the water's lip, the mask humming like a hive against his ribs. "Io," said, "stand tall, brother. Let fear find no purchase." Elder Jabari's voice rose steady as a drum. "Truth will keep your feet when the ground forgets its duty." Sefu strode forward, smile sharpened to a point. "Kneel, and the storm ends." Kwame breathed once, slow and full, and said, "Storms end when lies release their grip." Amara hovered behind Sefu, eyes restless, shoulders set against a tremor she could not still. The villagers lined the banks, each heart a small drum. Kwame lifted the mask and felt a tide of voices braid into one. He said, "I carry the living and the dead, and I will not trade them for silence." The river's skin rippled as if bowing to a name. Steel rang as Sefu's front line surged, like a red tide. A spear flashed for Kwame's heart, fast as a hawk stooping. Io moved before thought, his body a wall where death expected air. The spear struck deep, and his breath left in a hard sound. Kwame cried, "No," the word breaking like pottery in fire. Io smiled with blood bright at his lips. "You do not fall today." Jabari shouted a prayer that split the morning like lightning, and the river wind shivered. Sefu's men paused as doubt wormed their grip. Io's knees buckled, yet his hands pressed the shaft and turned it aside. He said, "Walk forward and make this hurt worth a dawn." Kwame took one step that felt heavier than a mountain, and swore to carry that weight forever. Amara watched Io's blood darken the sand, and something inside her cracked like dry bark in fire. She whispered, "This was never the prize I wanted." Sefu hissed, "Power bleeds. That is its language." She flinched as if struck, then met Kwame's eyes across the noise. He said, You can still break the chain you chose. Her hands trembled, shadowcraft flickering like moths burning on a wick. She said, "If I step back, I stand alone." Jabari answered without looking away from danger, "You stand with ancestors when you turn toward truth." The soldiers pressed, but their rhythm faltered under her wavering will. Amara drew a breath that tasted of iron and river spray. She said, "Then let the chain fall," and her shadows unraveled into light that shook like new leaves. Sefu roared and stepped into the ford, water curling from his ankles like fleeing serpents. He said, "If blood grants crowns, mine will flood this river." Kwame walked to meet him, the mask lifting as if drawn by tide. Jabari warned, voice a bell, "Do not mirror his hunger." Kwame nodded, breath steady. "I will mirror the river that shapes stone without breaking itself." Sefu lunged, blade sharp enough to shave thunder. The mask answered with a wave that was not wind but memory, warriors standing behind Kwame in a rank of ghosted flame. Sefu staggered, rage shattering into fear he refused to name. Kwame said, "Lay down what you stole, and live changed." Sefu spat, "I will die unchanged," and charged through the echo of his own shadow. Steel met memory, and the ford erupted in light that rang like struck bronze. Sefu's blade flew from his hand and vanished into the river's mouth. He fell to one knee, breath ragged, pride clinging like wet ash. Kwame stood above him, chest heaving, the mask cooling in his grip. Io's groan carried across the bank, thin but living, and hope bent the moment toward mercy. Jabari said, "Choose the world your name will leave behind." Amara whispered, "End him and become him, or spare him and become yourself." Kwame felt two doors open inside his ribs. He said, "I choose to break what broke us." He turned the mask and drew from it a binding wind that stripped Sefu's command from the hearts he held. The banners sagged like tired tongues, and silence fell with the weight of a new road. Morning drifted in soft as silk, and the ford lay quiet like a tired chest. Kwame stood where the light touched water and felt the mask cool in his hands. Elder Jabari said, "Victory is a seed. It must be planted with humility." Io leaned on a staff and smiled through ache. "We live so we can heal." Amara watched the banners sag and whispered, "Let the river carry our anger away." Sefu's men lowered their eyes and found their homes inside silence. Kwame breathed, steady and full. "We will mend what fear tore." The ancestors' hum faded to a gentle thread, guiding but not binding. The village stirred, not with panic, but with the careful steps of people learning a new road. Hope walked without shouting. By midday the village gathered, not to accuse, but to listen. Kwame lifted the mask and said, "Power that does not serve will devour." Elder Jabari spoke slowly, "We weave law from memory and mercy." Io nodded, "Let strength guard, not rule." Amara stepped forward, voice steady, "I will answer for my steps and help repair what I harmed." Gasps softened into murmurs of relief. What? Children edged closer, curious and unafraid. Kwame lowered the mask. "This belongs to all, carried by one only when needed." The crowd exhaled together as if lungs shared a rhythm. The cracked drum was set upon new chords, ready to sing without breaking. At the grove, smoke rose from sweet herbs and old stories. Elder Jabari traced new sigils beside the ancient ones. He said, "Tradition breathes best when given room." Kwame answered, "We will keep the roots and prune the thorns." Io planted spears at the boundary. "Let our guardianship be oath, not fear." Amara laid baskets of grain and said, "Let my offering begin my mending." The leaves shivered, as if approving. Kwame placed the mask on the altar and stepped back. "It will rest here and rise only by common call." The grove brightened, gentler than before, a place of steady light rather than thunder. Peace learned to speak without shouting. Sefu stood apart under a thorn tree, pride cracked but not erased. He said, "I built with fire because I feared the dark." Kwame met his eyes, steady, walk with us in daylight, or carry your night alone. Elder Jabari added, accountability is not a blade, it is a bridge. Io watched with tempered steel in his stance. Amara's voice was quiet, choose a path that does not demand our ruin. Sefu looked at his hands as if they belonged to a stranger. He bowed his head, I will labor where you set me, and learn silence before counsel. The thorn tree swayed, and dropped a single dry leaf, like a seal pressed in air. At dusk, the river turned to bronze and sang softly against the stones. Kwame stood alone for a breath, listening to a quiet that did not demand. He said, Ancestors, I will carry you as guidance, not weight. Elder Jabari's steps approached, and we will carry you when you tire. Io's laugh drifted from the bank, light and alive. Amara joined them, eyes clear. Tomorrow we rebuild the drum house. Kwame looked toward the village where lanterns bloomed like new stars. He whispered, let our future be a chorus, not a cry. The wind answered with gentle hands, and the night closed like a blessing.